to make sure I fill this in.
Yeah, I absolutely can. We can send the link out to the recording, and you're going to get all the slides with all the links and everything afterwards as well. So,
amazing. Thank you so much.
no problem. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to how to do your SEIS and EIS. As a quick reminder, SEIS and EIS are two tax incentive schemes for UK taxpayers, and it's into early stage businesses and startups. There are links down here to the government website that tells you a little bit more about it, but you'll find the information summarized here. So going into this new tax year, you can now raise up to £250,000 on SEIS and further amounts under EIS. This will include any de minimis state aid, so please check this and we'll cover this in a little while in more detail. And it will count towards any other venture capital scheme investments. On EIS, you can raise up to 12 million in total. And if you're a knowledge intensive company, there are some slightly different rules. I've linked them down here. We won't cover them today. We'll be covering the general startups for people under their SEIS and EIS, but you can learn more there. So the types of businesses that are eligible. So they have to be deemed that they're a sort of substantially risky business. And some of the types of businesses that are not eligible would be listed below. Now, if you're running a sort of fintech business or something, please don't worry about the banking insurance one, for example. You can contact HMRC just to validate, but I do assure you things like Revolut as new banking apps and things would have been SEIS and EIS eligible. So that first bullet point here about being a new qualifying trade, that just means you are not one of the ones listed in these bullet points here above. And you must have been trading for less than 3 years. And actually it's 3 years since your first commercial sale. You must be registered in the UK with UK Companies House. You can't be registered on a stock exchange at the point of share issue. You can't be registered to become a quoted company on the stock exchange or a subsidiary, i.e. part of another one. You can't control another company unless that company is a fully qualifying subsidiary of your own business. Probably not the case for most of us doing SEIS and EIS. You can't have been controlled by another company since you incorporated the business. A really important one here, you cannot have gross assets over £350,000 when the shares are issued. That can be a very important one for businesses that may have been running for a few years already. You can't be a member of a partnership, and I've linked into the definition here of a partnership, so please don't worry if you've done like a marketing style partnership, it is not what is meant here. There is some more details over in the hyperlink. You must be less than 25 full-time equivalent employees at the point of when the shares are issued, not after. And you can't have received any investment through EIS or from a venture capital trust before. This one's really important. So it just means you must do your SEIS eligibility limit before you start raising any investment, any cash under EIS. What's the difference between SEIS and EIS? Well, for EIS, you must have a permanent establishment in the UK, but it doesn't mean that's where you have to have been originally incorporated. That period from your first commercial sale is up to 7 years now. Otherwise, it is fairly similar for the next couple of bullet points until the point where actually you can be with another company, but you can't have 50% control from them. Your gross assets is now more than 15 million before the investment and no more than 16 million immediately afterwards. So if you're at 14 and you raise 2.5, that would push you to 16.5, and you would have gone outside of that threshold. And that 25 full-time equivalent employees is now 250. I'm just going to go through a couple more slides before I stop to take a break, which is talk about the eligibility from the investor side. And from the investor side, under the new tax threshold, you're now able to raise up to £200,000. It was 100,000 as an investor. So if I just jump back a second, you'll see here you can raise 250 on SEIS, but as an investor, they can only do 200,000 in any 1 year. So they can't take that full 250. If they did, 200 would be SEIS, 50 would be EIS, or they would have to split it over 2 years. What do they get? Well, they get a 50% tax break on their earnings. So that means that they must be paying some sort of tax. Either it's 50% of capital gains or their earnings. So let's say I invest £10,000 into a business and I'm going to claim £5,000 back. I'm going to do this via my self-assessment, and I must be paying that £5,000 in income tax or capital gains to be able to claim it back. If I'm only paying 3,000, I'll only be able to claim back the 3,000 in that year, and actually you can backdate for 2 previous years. If I was paying no income tax, no capital gains, there would be no relief for me to be able to claim. It's also worth noting that if everything went a bit wrong with the business, and let's say you close the business, then they're able to offset losses as an investor. That offset is equivalent to the tax rate they pay. So for example, if I was a 45% rate taxpayer and I'd invested £20,000 into the business, I claim back 10,000 originally off my capital gains or PAYE, income tax. And then as my higher rate taxpayer, I'm able to claim 45% on the remaining £10,000 loss, assuming the business went all the way to nothing at liquidation, had no value left. That means off my initial investment, I've only lost £5,500. It's also important to note, as other incentives, investors won't pay capital gains on the increase of the values of the shares, but they must hold them for 3 years. And generally, there are some inheritance tax advantages where you won't be paying inheritance tax as long as you hold them for over a 2-year period. There are some rules about who the investors can be. They can't be an employee of the business. They can't be a business partner, trustee, spouse, parent, child, grandchild, or grandparent. You will notice, though, that sibling, uncle, and aunt are not there. My understanding is within the sort of legal framework, they are exempt in this sense, and therefore your investors, if they were family investors, could go through someone like a sibling or an uncle or an aunt. They can't have more than 30% stake in the business. They can't have any other sort of substantial interest and be entitled to acquire more than the 30% stake in the business in the future. And lastly, as you can see here, they won't be able to claim tax relief if they are making some other sort of arrangement, linked loan, or tax avoidance scheme, because this is returning some value. So what does that mean? If someone comes along as an investor and says, oh, hi, I would like to give you this investment, but actually I want to do this as part of some loan and you're going to earn some interest or something on it, then it would not be viable. Okay. If they're claiming tax relief on some other tax avoidance mechanism, they then can't claim SEIS. The difference between this for SEIS and EIS is here it's $1 million that they're allowed to invest under a year instead of the 200,000. It's now a 30% rather than a 50% tax break. And otherwise you'll see that the rules and requirements are the same. All right, I'm going to stop there before we go into the actual steps you need to take and just jump back out the shared screen and try and answer any questions.
Great. So I have 2 questions. The first is, does that include in-laws? You said parents are excluded, but are my in-laws potentially able to be investors in the EIS scheme?
Yeah, in-laws under my standing would be allowed to invest.
Okay, great. And the second question I've now forgotten because I've lost the screen, which had the rest, and I have terrible memory.
I've
But
got it
I am
here in
sure
the chat, possibly, I think. Does that include in-laws? Oh, no,
that
I've
was
only
the
got one.
in-laws one.
Yeah, yeah,
I should have written that one down as well. It's fine. Don't worry, it will come to me, I'm sure.
no problem, Taya. Jeffrey, anything?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. When it says for EIS, 7 years since the first commercial sale, how exactly does that date have to be? Because, in the early days, we weren't necessarily keeping good records. It took us a few months to get incorporated. So, I can give an approximate, I can just give a month, and I can give the first of the month, but I don't really know exactly when it was. Yeah, because she started out of a university room, so who knows when that was, what date that was.
Yeah, exactly. I understand this completely, and I know this is the case for lots of people. I would suggest the best case in this, if you're going to put in an assumption, is put in what I would say is the worst case for you assumption and the best case for HMRC assumption. That way, at least, as long as if you're ever challenged on it, you can explain that this is where we've come from the assumption from. This is exactly what our situation was, and we've tried to put this into your favor. In that sense, then you shouldn't have any contest from HMRC.
And they're only asking it because for EIS for the 7-year rule. So if we're actually talking about whether it's 2.8 months or 2.9 months, they don't really care, right? If it's
exactly. If you're then very touch and go, and I've had this on one of mine, I just emailed HMRC and I explained to them, look, this is where I started trading. This is what I'm making my assumption. Are you happy before I file my application? And I got a reply within 2 days. Yeah, we're happy with this. And I filed one on a trading date of 28th of February or something like this.
My second question also about eligible investors. So she's the only director of the company. She's got a few shareholders, which are mainly family members, but there's also someone who's not a family member. Can a relative of that non-family member be an investor, or is it the very fact that his son is a shareholder is going to be a problem?
No, again, you should be fine. So as long as it's within those rules of the people who are the directors of the business, as I shared before, as long as you're within that eligibility requirement, you'll be fine.
Okay, thank you. I also have to confess that I didn't follow closely everything you saying about all the SEIS conditions, because I knew you were going to come to the EIS one, but then you said, oh, and all the rest of the same, and I thought, I haven't looked closely enough. But we'll get those on the slides afterwards.
Yeah, it's okay. You can go back through them. Taya, you're going to ask a question?
Yeah, really quickly. So HRT, higher rate tax. So you mentioned what the calculation was for SEIS. I'm just wondering, so if you're the first 30% will be, how does it work? If let's say someone invests £10,000 in my business, EIS, and their higher rate tax, what is the tax benefit there?
So for SEIS, it's 50%. On the first one, and then if the business goes into losses, it's the same percentage as the rate they pay in tax. So if they're higher rate 45, then for EIS it's 30% and the same again. So it's whatever you pay in tax. So if you're a 20% rate taxpayer, it would be 20% losses of losses.
What we're really saying is they're limited. If it's EIS, they're limited to 75% of real exposure. Sorry, 25% even, because it's 30 plus. Is that the right math? Yes, it is.
No, that's not the right math. I'll just tell, as an engineer, that's definitely not the right math. You can't just add the 2 percentages together like that, sadly. It's not quite how it works. But take the example with 20,000, under EIS, you get 50% back originally, so 10, and then as a higher rate taxpayer, another 45, so 4.5 of 10 if you lost everything. So 5.5 would be at risk in that sense.
Yeah, but if it was SEIS, right?
That's SEIS. For EIS, it's then 30% on the first bit, so you would get back 30% of 20,000, which is 6,000. Okay,
I got you.
And then that means you can now lose 14,000. And then I don't have a calculator in front of me, sadly, but you could lose 45. You could then get back 45% of 14,000.
Okay. Okay, I understand that.
Take that and work that out off the original 20, and that tells you the risk exposure.
About 6,500, I presume. But yeah, okay, 12,000 is about 12,000 in total. Okay, that makes sense. All right, great. Okay, thank you very much.
Cool. No, it's all right. Cool. All right, I'm going to jump back in if you are ready.
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is a really boring bit, and this is why I always encourage people really honestly, like, you don't need to pay an accountant or someone to do your SEIS EIS if you don't want to, because whatever happens, you're about to do this first bit anyway, okay? And that's where the bulk of the work comes from, okay? So you need to get your basic documentation ready. This stuff's pretty easy. Company name, corporation tax number, unique taxpayer reference. If you don't know where that is, it is on any letter from HMRC, okay? You need to know how much you're raising. I always suggest to just put in the full threshold if you're doing advance assurance, okay? Why put in 100,000, get advance assurance for that, and then get offered 250, yeah? And suddenly you go back and reapply. Address for the company, really easy, company's house, company registration number, company's house. Memorandum of understanding, you do need one, yeah, also known as memorandum of association. It should be attached in company's house already. You've possibly made like a default one or something where when you started the business, but that's where they'll be. You'll need an articles of association. Again, we had model articles when we started, but what I submitted, and you'll see this later down the line, and this is where you will need some support probably, is we submitted our new articles of association that had some custom terms to our investors and was part of our like term sheets and things. I got ours from Sea Legals. I didn't pay them to do the SEIS EIS. I do use Sea Legals religiously for all our investment rounds. It's a very good way to manage your documentation. You will need an articles of association. Date of incorporation, you'll need to know this. Again, that's in company's house. Details to the business contact. These are going to probably be your details in this case from where they're going to reply to. You need to know your company's asset value. So if you've been running for a couple of years, you're going to need to have your asset value. You're going to need a pitch deck. They call it prospectus. Generally, people call this a pitch deck. You're going to need your operating model, which is basically your financial forecast and your financial history if you've been running for a few years. And you will need name and addresses of likely investors. Avoid people who don't qualify in the brackets. I know that's a slightly obvious statement, but yeah, I put likely investors here because obviously you're going for assurance, people may drop out along the way. So you want to put the name of someone who might invest into the business. They are not then legally obligated to invest at the round, if that makes sense. The one bit I have missed on there on the basic documentation, actually, if you've been running for a number of years, you'll need your company accounts as well. So you'll need your latest company accounts that you filed to HMRC. Once you've actually got the documentation ready, you can then go and file your advance assurance form. I should probably say at this point, you don't have to do advance assurance to get compliance later. People generally do it because it provides them with assurance that they will be able to be eligible and they can provide that assurance to investors. Most seasoned investors will know whether your business is going to be compliant or not, regardless of you having advance assurance. What it does show is that you've done a certain amount of due diligence as a business to be able to get advance assurance, because obviously you must have all of these basic activities done as a business, including financial models and having made your financial submissions to HMRC if you've been running for a number of years. But I hope that's clear. You don't have to do this for compliance. Okay, hopefully we have the new links for our advance assurance forms. Yes, we do. Amazing. So it used to be like a form that was PDF'd and you posted. And as I said, they've been changing this as we go. I'm just going to stop sharing screen for a minute because I'm going to sign in with my email address. And that's how I'm going to choose to do this one. So it will send me a code and I'll need to just come paste it over. So just give me one moment, please.
I've got a few questions when you're ready as well.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I didn't outsource this process now, because it doesn't look as complicated as I had initially thought it might be. Everyone's like, just pay £300 to someone, they'll do it. And I'm like, oh, it's also, I mean, I could also do it myself perhaps. And now I really think I can.
I filed three in an afternoon the other day.
Yeah, it's not, especially if you're already fundraising, like a lot of the stuff you'll have anyway. And
Correct.
yeah, and then
And if you don't, you shouldn't be fundraising anyway.
true.
And someone will take your £300 and let you crack on, but they shouldn't. Yeah.
But Seed Legals was also trying to push me into paying them to do the application. They were saying that their advantage is that they can get the turnaround much more quickly than if we do it individually. Is that true?
1 month.
I'm going to turn my camera. I'm going to just pause the recording because we do have a partnership with Seed Legals. They know I say this because I say this everywhere all the time anyway. But oh, sorry, my slides are just. But give me 1 second. And then James doesn't have to edit the whole thing out. There we go. It's hey God. I won't put the questions. Cool. So this is how. Oh, no, we're not sharing. Hold on. There we go. And I just hide everything. Cool. So this is how the form looks when you actually start filling it out. So we're going to just go through really quickly on this one. So you need to know the name of the company. You need to know your corporation tax number. I think it's not going to let me put in a fake one anymore. Yeah, it doesn't. They actually have a validation system in here now. They never used to. And I think I just lost the default form for there. Okay, there's my actual one. This one's the company registration number and your date of incorporation. Okay. Easy, section 1 done. And I'm sorry, this is going to be really boring, but it should show you how easy it is. Okay. Which venture capital scheme are you seeking for? So you should know which one you're doing. Okay. I'm going to say this is a really important part. The only rejections I ever have are every time I forget that you have to do separate applications. So if you're raising some SEIS, some EIS, you've got to submit twice. Okay. If you've issued shares on multiple dates, you have to issue one for every date. That's why I had to do 3 the other day, because I issued shares over 3 dates, all EIS, but I had to do 3 applications. Okay, so that's really important. So tick the ones that you're going to do. I'm going to tick both today. Okay. Are you applying as a knowledge intensive company? I said I'm not going to cover this today, but there are links in there if you are. Okay, now you've got to talk about your risk to capital conditions. So I used to actually leave this one very loose, and then having had some back and forth with HMRC the other day, I have worked on a little bit more detail for these. And actually, irritatingly, I'm going to just stop sharing for 1 second. So I can bring something up and go through what I've been using as my default.
Thank you.
So I used to just attach a presentation in. I used to say, just please see my supporting material attached. And finally, someone rejected this the other day. We had a lot of discussion on why. And so I'm going to make sure that no one else gets the rejection. Compliance statement. Okay, here we go. James, when we're doing the recording, please just redact this section out and hide it. The benefit of being at an event. Okay, 1 second.
Oh, wait.
There we go. Okay, so this is what we agreed with HMRC going back and forth. So risk to capital. So I stated what my revenue forecasts were over the next 5 years. I stated where it will come from, which products and services. I said where the gap was between the investment that I'd raised and where my spend was. I then said, please see my business plan, this Excel model with the forecast and spend. I then told them about my employee growth and what those people would be doing and what would be subcontracted out and what would be in-house. And this is what I've submitted as additional details for my risk to capital condition, as well as the other supporting materials we'll go through. Okay.
So what you're saying here is more rather than less.
Yeah, exactly. I used to do a lot less and just say see attached. Okay.
Because when I was looking at this same screen and filling in mine, I was just saying, you know, here are the risks. You know, the advertising may not bring in the amounts that we thought. We may not get staff retention that we planned. And I was just sort of going to leave it like that, with a couple of small paragraphs. But you're going much more full on, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose it is kind of all covered in the business plan. Isn't that the point of it? Like, it's weird to then have to take that, like the objectives of growing the business and developing trade, which should be anyone. I mean, if you're a profitable business is really what you want to do. It's interesting that you then have to restate it here, given that we need the business plan we need to submit the business plan as well.
I completely agree. That's what I've been doing for 4 years, and then suddenly no. Okay. So this is what I put in my last one, and this is what they asked me for the additional information to put in more detail. Yeah. Okay.
So they don't, is that right? They don't reject you outright then? They will just say we need some more detail.
No, they rejected me outright.
All right. So then the 4 week starts again.
Correct. Which is
sorry, you moved screen. What was that very last line that you typed in?
Yeah.
Reference supporting business plan and financials. Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Okay, so now we're into the next section, qualifying business activity. So you're going to say, are you raising for trade or research and development to do a trade later? We're going to take the example of trading for now, because that's the one that has the more requirements. Has your trade started yet? Yes. Now we know what the requirement is here, and they're going to remind us 2 years. This is 3. This is now wrong. Okay, it is now 3 years. Okay, that changed in April 6th. Okay. Now, here's our next one. And again, I used to just say, please see my supporting documents, and got rejected, as I explained. So I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second. I'm going to grab the additional detail. And I've obviously saved these over in a document so that I can use these again and again.
I mean, if you're planning on raising a ton of times, I suppose. Very useful. I'm hoping I don't have to do this multiple times. It's going to be quite painful. I feel this in my bones.
It is a little. I suggest saving them.
Fair enough.
Okay. Amazing. Okay. So what we went with here is business activities. And again, I've gone with what our income streams are and their percentages. Okay. And James, again, please do remove these from the video. That's all income streams. Our types of customers. They asked me to clarify, do we actually rent spaces? We don't own any buildings as othership, so they just wanted that as a further clarification. And then I referenced the operating model. Okay, so how you make money, what are those income streams, who are your customers, and then reference your supporting documents. Okay.
Who are customers? So on the if there's an issue with any of these questions, they can also just come back and ask rather than cancel the entire application.
No.
Is that right?
No.
Oh, bloody hell.
No.
Okay.
Okay. And honestly, I'd really never had a problem before, and I was really confident to always say here, never had anything rejected, just said see supporting information. As long as you've got a proper pitch deck and a business plan, you're fine. And then these, okay? But it's easy to say. So revenue streams, who are your customers, see supporting documentation, okay? It's not
And
terrible.
by who are your customers? It's not customer personas, is it? It's more like they're people we found online through online advertising, or what does that even like? I don't.
I actually talked about customer personas, so like B2B, B2C and things. I talked about this. So. Okay. Previous investments. So if you have previous investments, this is where you will need to say them. And you need to say, have you actually gone through, were those investments under any of the venture capital scheme mechanisms that are down here? If your answer is yes, you're going to put yes, you're going to say how many, and you're going to have to put in the details from this. You can get that from your current cap table for your investor details. Do include their names, addresses, amounts invested. For most people on their first application, the answer is going to be no. So very easy. So now you're going to talk about your proposed investment and how much you actually want to raise. You can receive a maximum of 150. We know this is not true. We know it's 250 nowadays. And what is the purpose of issuing shares? So here you need to talk about what you will use the funds for. Yeah. See the business plan and financial forecast for more details. Okay. So you can look against, we're going to use it against this spend, or if you have already raised it and spent it, then you can say this is what we spent it against. Here is your proposed investor list. This is that Excel file we talked about earlier.
Do you know if they're looking for any, is there any traps that you might fall into by saying what you want to use the thing for? So, like if you say you want to use it solely for staff and they say, oh, well, that's not really the sort of thing we're looking for, so we'll reject it on that basis.
No, not that I have had a problem with previously. I mean, all the requirements don't state anything that I've ever seen about this. If you'd said that you were starting an AI-based mental health app and it turned out that you were providing consulting services to the NHS, then yeah, you probably wouldn't be eligible. Yeah. Right. Because that's now not a significantly risky business and you're just pretending to be one thing when you're not. Right. Yeah. What class of shares will be issued? Almost certainly you'll be issuing ordinary shares. Yeah, and one of the things that's in your requirements is that everyone, you can't be issuing some sort of preferential rights to somebody. Okay. And here we go. Are there any preferential rights attached to this class of share? No, they're ordinary shares without preferential rights. maximum permitted age. This is the permitted age of the company. Okay. Are you within this 10 years if you're a knowledge intensive companies? And your first commercial sale? Yep, we are. Has the company made a commercial sale? We can say yes in this case. And we're going to say we did it this year. I need to be very wary of time for today. Control and independence, we're going to say we're a single company, or if you're a parent company owning other companies, you need to put this in, but probably you're a single company. Company assets, employee limits, we know we just need to be within the thresholds. And then the thresholds are here as a reminder. Again, this one is wrong. It is now 350,000. And this one is correct, up to 16 million. And remember the after share issue requirement, the number of full-time employees. Easy one. Remember for EIS, it's that you have a registered business address in the UK. Your registered business address. Oh, I always have this problem. No spaces in the postcode. There we go. So that's all a really easy bit. About you. Are you acting on behalf of an agent? No. And then your contact details. James, and the recording, please remove my email and mobile number. Okay, we're there. Supporting documents. So here you can see the list. You need to provide your business plan. Subscription agreement. Subscription agreement means investors. So the copy and details of the investors and what they're investing into the business.
And again, it doesn't have to cover the full amount, you're saying there. It could just be a fraction of the amount.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, because obviously not everyone has to be SEIS or EIS eligible. Any side agreement, so if someone's given you an investment and said, but you've got to come and spend £50,000 back with my development agency when I've given you 100, you need to tell them, because they can only claim SEIS on the 50 then, because they got £50,000 value back from you already, and it wouldn't be eligible. Only in that example, they give you 100, they ask you for a side agreement to do 50K's work with them, they can only claim under the 50 that is left. Your latest available accounts, your list of current shareholders in the company, okay, at the date of your submission, yeah, your memorandum, articles of understanding, and your pitch deck, okay. We're going to attach our financial forecast as well, this business plan and financial forecast. Easy.
So I think from everything that list you've just gone through, the only thing I don't have is the articles. But and again, I'm not sure that I need to spend 1,500 with any particular company. I mean, I can probably get the bog standard articles, can't I?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, but remember, they're going to be the articles under the terms that people are investing at when you get to compliance. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if those articles that you take are bog standard and they then don't comply with some of the rules and things, or you change them later, you know, that does matter. Yeah. So I'd suggest just getting the ones that are the terms that you're going to try and agree to. Okay, that's it. Then you can just check your answers here. and click send, and it will submit. I'm not going to do it because it now does submit you nowadays, and I don't want to keep the application in that sense. So I'm just going to sign out from that one at the moment.
When it talks about submitting your company accounts, can that be sort of the summarized accounts that are posted at Companies House, or they have to be the more detailed ones?
I have submitted my ones from Companies House at the moment as my published accounts, and that's what I've been using to date. I've never submitted anything else in that sense.
Right. So even though it's a very summarized one, it seems okay.
Yeah, okay. That's what I've been using. Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to bring up the PowerPoint. Perfect. So that's got you to here. Generally, they say they'll get back to you actually within 15 days. They can be exceptionally quick sometimes within 3 or 4 days. If you do it around the end of the tax year, yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer, but generally you'll find they get back to you very quickly. You can also email them. I don't have their email in the presentation. They're very quick to respond, generally 1 to 2 days on the email. So once you've actually done this, then your job is to go and complete your investment round. And that means having your term sheets and your shareholders agreements, etc., signed and completed. What I do recommend is when people are transferring funds, try to have everyone send all your SEIS funds first, ideally around about the same date as well. The reason is you're meant to take all of your SEIS funds and issue those shares before you do any EIS. If you do EIS first, you suddenly told yourself you're not compliant or made yourself non-compliant for SEIS. So always issue all of your SEIS shares first and then followed by your EIS. Once you've done that, you need to complete something called an SH01 form. This is a return of allotment of shares. You can now file this online. Really easy. You used to have to file it and then get it sent to Companies House within a 14-day period. You don't anymore. You can now just file them online. Very simple. I'll just show you what they do look like though. So here you're putting in your company details, company name, company number, your allotment dates. So this is the from date when you started issuing shares, the to date. If you've issued shares over multiple dates, you do the start date and the end date. Ideally, this is the first date you've issued in SEIS. This is the last date you issued in EIS. Okay. Try to get them on 2 dates because then you only have to file 2 compliance forms. Okay.
By issuing shares. Oh, okay. As in, so if you do 2 different rounds, but you don't, because like you're not talking
one
about
round.
people
One round. No, just within one round. Okay. So let's say I've raised £100,000 over. Okay, and people are going to send you money on different dates because people are people. Yeah.
Yes.
And let's say in that 100,000, some was SEIS and some was EIS. Yeah. Okay, then you're going to just have a range of dates. So you've got a from and a to date. Yeah, if that makes sense. Then you've got your class of shares, ordinary shares. You've got some details about any preferential rights, etc., that you will find from your articles that you can copy paste into here. The total number of shares you allotted, the nominal value. Okay, I always say this one is a really important one. Your nominal value is how much capital was put in at the beginning. So let's say you put in £1 and made 100 shares. Your nominal value is a penny, £1 divided by 100. It is not the share price paid at the time, okay? This is referenced in the presentation. Your amount paid, so this is the amount they've actually given you for all of that share, so the total amount raised. Any amount unpaid, generally you shouldn't be issuing shares if people haven't paid you, I would say. So I've never had something in here, but if you have an amount unpaid, you need to leave that in here as well. Here are your particulars. This is where you can say, exactly as I was saying up here, what the details are of your share type. So it's like an ordinary share with like no preferential terms or something. You'll get quite standard 1 ones provided if you go through seed legals that look like this. These are ours, just to say that they're completely standard. You sign, you put in your details, and you submit. And as I said, you can just do this online now. But that's how the PDF looks. So you send this to SHO1, and as I said, you can do web filing or you can post it to them. You then need to issue your shares to your investors, making sure the dates of the share issues for SEIS are before your non-SEIS shares, okay? So SEIS first, then EIS. Congrats, you've completed an investment round. Now you need to get compliance statements so that your investors can actually claim back what they're meant to be claiming off their income or capital gains. So there's two places you do this. One is an SEIS 1 form and the other is an EIS 1. Obviously, SEIS is for the SEIS portion and EIS is for the EIS portion. I just need to sign in again with my address. So I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second. And we're about to go through a form that looks incredibly similar to the last one.
Is all the stuff that we would have filled in for the advanced assessment going to be very similar when you then go for the final application? The only difference, presumably, is you need proper bona fide shareholders, but sorry, investors. But,
you got it.
Yeah, apart from that, everything's the same. And can we even just forward it on or continue it, or do we have to start all over again?
You start again.
Right. Okay.
Joy. Yeah. And as I say, you don't have to do assurance. You don't have to. Yeah. Super. So here we go. We'll go through nice and quick. Do you confirm you want to do your compliance now? Yes, you do. You've issued these shares. You're doing this. Here we go. Bob's Cafe. We're back. Is the company name trading to a different one? No. No, we're trading under the same name in this case. Obviously, if you're a different one, put the other one. Unique taxpayer reference followed by company registration. Do you have a PAYE reference? I'm going to put no here just so I don't have to blank it out on the video recording, but yes, do put one if you have one. Yeah, and we do. So that wasn't on the last form. Now you do need to add it. When was your company incorporated? Every time. Okay, so shares issued, almost certainly ordinary shares, and the date when the shares were issued this time. If you've got more than one date, if you issued the shares on different dates, you've got to fill the form twice, okay? You can't try and be sneaky and put the last date and then have 3 dates of share issues up to that date. I've tried that, it doesn't work. Submit separate ones, okay? Here's your amount that you've raised. Let's just say we've done £5,000. Number of investors. Okay, if you go over 10, I think you put in Excel. I think if you're under 10, it asks you to fill it out here. We're going to put 1. Okay. Upload. Okay, they're all uploads nowadays. Upload details of your investors. Here is what needs to be included. Okay, alphabetical order. Okay. Please tell me my last submission put alphabetical order. Surnames first, postcode, full address, number of shares, amount paid. So this time not the share value, the amount they paid. Okay. And you can see an example here. Okay. And you choose your file. I'm just loading the wrong file all the time at the moment. Oh, and it has to be an Excel.
Oh,
Can't be a CSV. I know this. Got to be an Excel. Oh, why is it not like that? I know it says I can do a PDF, so I'm going to do it, but Excel is best. I'm just uploading the wrong documents at the moment, obviously, just to get anything through. Was the company using model articles? So this is where you're going to answer. Your answer is going to be no if you have set any custom terms or anything like this. Yeah. What are the share rights outlined in the company's articles? So here, I use the same thing that I've put into my SHO1 form. And then see attached articles for more information. And then you're going to have to upload them. So if you've raised another investment round afterwards, now you need to tell them. This can get a real pain, okay? So I generally recommend doing your SEIS and EIS quite quickly after you've raised, because what might happen is, let's give one example. Let's say you raise SEIS and EIS in one round, and you've issued shares for SEIS on day one, and on day two, you've issued your EIS shares. You've already made changes now to the date on this application for the SEIS, and you need to say yes and tell them about the EIS round and all the other shares that are about to go with it. Okay. So you can also imagine in another circumstance or another scenario that you've raised a round and you haven't filed your EIS for a year. Yeah. And you just haven't completed that part of the process yet. And at some point you start running out of cash and you go and raise a bit more money. You now need to tick yes again and tell them about that round. If you do it really quickly and you haven't issued anything else afterwards, you can say no and just move on. If the answer is yes, then it's an Excel attachment saying what you raised on what dates, and there's an example available. The next question is starting to check your requirements of acceptability again.
So if you do the compliance very quickly after you've done it, so there's no changes,
Yeah.
is that it for good, or you need to do it every year anyway?
No, that's it.
Right.
Okay. Unless you raise again. Has any value been received? So this is talking about those sorts of contracts. If you say yes, you need to tell them about the contract that you've done to provide some value back to the investors, a sort of side agreement. Hopefully your answer is no. Does any investor have more than 30% ordinary share? Hopefully your answer is no, otherwise you're not eligible. Same question effectively. So they're trying to see if there's any sort of preferential rights on liquidation. And you can move through. Previous investments, if you've not done any investments, nice and easy, you're going to say no. If yes, it's the same as the attachment previously. You just need to tell them what you have raised under what schemes. Qualifying business activity. I'm not going to cover this again. We've covered this once in the last one. Same for risk to capital. Control and independence. No, we're a single company. Nice and easy. Company assets and employee limits. Again, we know the answers to all of these already. Supporting documents to attach, the same as before. They have a checklist for you. And they ask you, did you apply for advance assurance? If you said yes, put in the date that you got approved. Here, it's important. Have you changed anything since your initial one? Now, to the question that came earlier, if you submitted model articles and now you don't have model articles because you've put in a term sheet that's been signed with some terms that aren't model in that sense, and they won't be, then you're going to have to say yes, yeah, and explain what the differences are between them. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
If you've done everything pre-prepared and nothing's changed, you can say no. Generally, stuff will have changed. Your pitch deck might have changed. Your financial forecast might have changed. Generally, you can say yes. Yeah. And then just upload the new attachments and explain what's changed. Okay.
And this is compliance after the EIS or SEIS has gone through already, right? That we're talking about here.
This is compliance to say, I have issued my shares now, and I want you to give me a code back, which I'm going to give to my investors to get their tax claim.
So I'm seeing this as a third filling out. There's the first one. If I do advanced assurance, that's first. Then there's the actual EIS application.
Yeah.
And then there's this. And so
No,
between
there's assurance, compliance. This is compliance. Yeah.
Oh, so this comes immediately after the assurance. This is
no. So assurance.
Yeah.
Go raise the money and issue the shares.
Yeah.
You cannot be compliant if you've not issued any shares.
Right. So are you saying that after the assurance, I'm raising the money, even though I haven't actually had the EIS yet? I've only had the advanced assurance, right?
No, exactly. So you get your documentation, you get advance assurance, which you don't have to do.
Yeah.
But it gives confidence to you and investors that you will be compliant.
Yeah.
You raise your money.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you file for compliance. It would be like trying to do a self-assessment without having made an income otherwise.
Right. Okay. Yes. Sorry. I thought investors would want to invest only after they knew say you didn't do advanced assurance, they would want to know that you've got EIS before giving you money, wouldn't they?
That's the whole point of assurance. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
So, but that's the only thing. If you decide not to do advanced assurance, you're asking them to invest in the hope that you're getting an EIS.
Correct. And any investor who is a seasoned investor would know if you're compliant or not before that anyway.
By just looking at your details.
If you went and spoke to someone who is working at a VC as an investor, they'll know straight away.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. If you meet someone who says, I make 100 investments a year in SEIS and EIS companies, and you need assurance, I'd question whether they're telling you the truth or not.
Right.
Okay. Because they should just know.
So I suppose it's worth saying that on pitch decks, it's just like people are just, if you're new, it's just a typical thing to see people saying already, what's it called, advanced assurance or blah, blah, because it's similar to a similar process people usually do.
As I said, if you've never look at it this way, if you've never been a founder before, you've never done any of this before, it does give investors some assurance that you've got a real business plan that's been written together, you know what your forecasts are, that you've done some work. And you've got to imagine these investors maybe get sent 1,000 decks a year. And let's say in those 1,000, 750 of them, when they reply back, are you SEIS and EIS compliant, go, what's that? You know that that person's probably not ready for investment. Now, there may be outliers within there, but probably they're very early in their journey and they've jumped too soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, if you spoke to an investor and you've done 10 businesses before and exited them, they're not going to care. They know that you know what you're doing. Does that make sense? It's assurance.
Yes,
it's giving people. It's giving people.
I was muting myself, but I was nodding, which you can't see either.
So. Yeah, I was nodding too. That actually was the exact question I was going to ask, and you've answered it. Perfect. Yeah.
Super. I'm not going to hit the submit again. So obviously the about you is just your details, and your declaration is a bunch of check boxes. Say, yes, I've attached all these documents and I comply with everything I've said before previously. And then you submit. What happens after you submit? That is the next question. Cool. So you've now got here, you've submitted. I'd suggest downloading a copy, wait patiently up to 45 days. Again, you can see here, one took 9 days. I've had one back in 4 days. They can be very quick. If they're very slow, it's because they're very busy. It's not because it's come through one channel or another. And we had some questions about this earlier. For those of you who are listening, you'll know what I mean. For what happens then is once you get accepted, you will get sent back in an email something called an SEIS 3 EIS 3. It comes over email. Okay. Oops, sorry. It comes over email, and it will have within it a unique investment reference number in this email. Okay. And that unique investment reference number goes on to something called your EIS 3, SEIS 3 certificates. Oh, sorry. The UIR is on your SEIS 2, EIS 2. That's the email. And attached will be a certificate called an SEIS 3, EIS 3. That's what you're going to give back to your investors. And I'll just show you what one looks like.
And everything you've been talking about here for the last 20, 25 minutes is the sort of thing that seed legals might help with and just smooth. And this is the documentation you were referring to earlier, is it?
No, sadly not. No, they'll give you all the other documentation you need to raise around. No, sadly not. So this is your SEIS 3, EIS 3. Here you put in the name and address of your investor, ordinary shares, nominal value. If you remember, that's the original capital asset value, that like £1 you put in and made 100 shares. So it's the penny. The number of shares you issued, the amount invested by that investor. So the number of shares that investor got, the amount that they gave you to get those shares, the date they were issued. Probably you don't have a termination date. You have received value from the company or connected to, hopefully nothing, but this is that example. If someone gave you 100,000 and said, you've got to spend 50,000 with my development company, you've got to fill it here. Your unique investment reference number, that's the one that HMRC send you back to say, yes, you're compliant. Your details go in here and you send that to your investor. They'll fill out these details down here, along with their accountant, more than likely, how much they're claiming back in any given tax year, and they will file this along with their self-assessment. And that is how they will claim back their tax relief. So you can see here, you'll then share that document with them. Here, I just put a note, the amount subscribed is the amount they invested. Okay, that's what subscribed means. And here's my note about the nominal value. Okay, just to make sure that you don't put in the amount they paid per share. They're two different things. That is it, actually. Once you've done that, you'll get everything back. Just as a quick reminder, and I'll pause the record bit in the recording so James can work it out. So yeah, some of the bits that be interesting. So for the Seed Legals partnership perks, you may want to head over to the link we'll put down in the description for the video, which is othership.com/perks we learned. And what happens is for Othership members, generally, if you're a premium or all access member on our on-demand service, then you can access these perks. We do a 2-week free trial as well. So you can take the 2-week free trial, claim the perk, and then jump out if you want to. I would recommend during that 2-week free trial, we run a really active Slack group as well. So as I said, many of our early adopters at Othership were freelancers and founders, and there's a whole load of us in our Slack group. And people do things like ask for help. You can reach me in there. I'm at Ben C, so you can ask me any questions about your SEIS.
I'm paying £30 a year or
There you go,
something like
Taya.
that?
Okay, so £30 a year gets you our essential. You'll be in Slack, Taya, but you won't get
Yes,
you won't get the perks, I don't think. Okay.
okay. Well,
If the premium one will get you the perk, and probably you'll cover the cost of your annual membership with a discount. So it might be a good one. The other bit I'll tell you about while we're on the recording for Othership is we also do a whole load of on-demand workspaces around the UK. That's what we launched with like 4 years ago as well. And they're generally cafes, hotels. You can get like a free coffee or a discount on food and drink with the premium membership. And if you go to like a co-working space or a meeting room for like a day or an hour, we generally discount them 25 to 50% off your booking as a premium member. We do an all access membership which means you never pay. I suggest only using it if you're going 4 or 5 days a week. Otherwise, you're much better off to take a premium membership with us. And that's how it works. As I said, yeah, the Slack group, which Taya, you might be in then if you've got an essential membership already, you'll see me, Bensi in there. You can just DM me and ask me any questions that you want. You can also just use the I need help channel and be like, hey guys, I'm doing my SEIS. I need I need an answer. Someone else will generally know in the community. About half of everyone in there is a founder, and almost all of us will have done SEIS and EIS. So someone will know. And there's also a bunch of accountants and things, and people are more than happy to chip in if it's a 5-10 minute time frame to give an answer. People just give you an answer. And it's really easy. So do check these out as well. Otherwise, that's it from me for today. Oh, I'm going to do one thing for you guys, which is I will drop into the chat the PDF of the presentation from today. You will get an email. As I said, the one on the email is the presentation from last month. Okay. And
that's the one with a couple of bad links.
Has a couple of bad links. Yeah, it will take you to that old form that they changed literally a few days ago again.
So you said you dropped the new links into the chat, is that right?
They're in the presentation in the chat. So use this one that I've just put in. You should be able to download that PDF from there.
Cool. Cool. Okay, thank you. Yes, I am in the group. I should probably use the Slack channel more often.
Everyone says this, Taya, who doesn't use it enough. It is really good. It is really good.
It is. I know. Every so often I'll look at it, I'm like, oh, I missed this opportunity. And then I'll go back to not looking at it. Shame on me.
If you're both in London as well, our networking events are really nice. We do them at Homeworks in Fulham at the moment. It's a good way to just meet some other people, and especially maybe Jeff, for like your daughter or something, even to come promote the business, just speak to other people who are on the same journey. That's the nice thing. You sit in a room and suddenly you realize, like, oh shit, everyone else is like me, and we're all in the same positions. And some people know a bit more about other bits than other people, and generally people help each other out, which is nice. We do a pitch for investment event as well, which is like an online pitch for investment. We put a panel of people who have cash to deploy at the time. There are lots of pitch events in London. Be careful. A lot of the people on the panel at them are like trying to sell services. And we try to put people on who genuinely have cash to deploy into businesses at the time. What I would say is some of the other events are very good to go to practice. We put ours up on YouTube so you can watch other people and see what they've done well and what they've done badly and learn from them, which is nice. And they're also on the Othership website as well, actually, under like events, pitch for investment recordings. Don't register until you're really ready. Yeah. This is always my tip. Like, come to that event when you have a term sheet and someone says, yeah, I want to meet you afterwards, and you go for a call afterwards and they say, send me the term sheet. Like, you're in a sales cycle. Yeah. I always try and remind people this: you're selling equity to investors. Therefore, you need all the contracts and stuff ready if someone's ready to buy. So that's a good time to come and register, but feel free to come watch the event. It's a great way to see how people are raising investment and what people do badly when they're raising and what people do well when they're pitching to others. So.
Is this the thing that's last Thursday of the month? Is that
correct? Yeah, that's the one.
Right. Okay, just looking at your website. Fantastic.
Super. I'm going to stop recording.